Receiving incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
Incoming transmission.
I'm sure you have many questions.
Transmission.
Transmission.
Welcome to Transmission, a weekly show about the most impactful posts from our Meteor.js forums. My name is Ben Strahan, developer at OKGrow, and each week I am joined by Sashko a core developer at Meteor Development Group. Please note, the contents of this show are the sole opinions of their authors. This show is sponsored by Meteor Galaxy Hosting, a containerized cloud service specifically designed and engineered for Meteor app deployment. Learn more at meteor.com/galaxy. This show is also sponsored by OKGrow, an official Meteor consulting partner building full stack web and mobile apps. Learn more at okgrow.com. Welcome, Meteor fans, to part number 3 of show number 2. Today we're going to be talking about why is Meteor.install or Meteor 1.3 API better than Webpack? And this is a Meteor topic. And everyone was kind of wondering at first. They were all assuming like, oh, Webpack's going to be in 1.3. That's going to be our build tool. And everyone kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And then we had an excellent post from Benjamin on like 1.3 and building using ECMAScript 2015 modules. And then this forum post came up and said, hey, yo, what's up with this? So we're going to be diving into it. We're going to have a link to the forum post in our show notes. So click on it and let's get into the show. Sashko, show number 3.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's rock and roll, man. Long day. Okay. So my first question is, well, not so much. Well, yeah, I guess this is. In this forum post, one of the main reasons that Benjamin said that you guys went with modules instead of Webpack in 1.3 was because you guys are very concerned about backwards compatibility.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. And I was wondering if, like, I can't tell what the future is, but is there a conversation around like version 2.0 and maybe like integrating a third-party builder so that's something else that's like off your guys' plate? Or is like there's like zero conversation about 2.0?
Yeah, well, I think like 2.0 is something always everyone is thinking about, right? It's like, you know, how much easier is it to just start over versus trying to like do backwards compatibility and have things transition smoothly.
Yeah.
I think the only reason we would ever drop a 2.0 label on something is, you know, if we were going to remove a significant chunk of functionality.
Okay.
So currently there's no talk about when or why we would do that. So like, for example, you know, if we, you know, you can imagine a world where we introduce some of this module functionality, you know, and then like a year later or a year and a half later or whatever, we say, okay, like Meteor 2 is going to come out and it's going to be all about modules and we're not going to have the, you know, automatic global variable thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that would be like a Meteor 2 type situation. And I think that's exactly what Ben is trying to prevent right now, because we want to make sure that people with Meteor 1.3, which is, you know, Meteor 1.3, not Meteor 2.0, they can take advantage of all this great stuff with module functionality, not having to order your files in a certain way, being able to put your files in whatever directories you please and then import them to control when they load and why. Let people use standard tools from the JavaScript ecosystem. Like right now with Meteor 1.3 beta, you can already use standard JavaScript tools like Jest, Mocha, all that kind of stuff that relies on ECMAScript modules. You can use it just fine with Meteor 1.3 without any involvement from Meteor's build tool at all. Mm-hmm. Because your code now looks a lot more like standard JavaScript code.
Yeah.
So I think the number one goal of Meteor 1.3 is to take Meteor's biggest difference from current JavaScript apps, which is the way that files are loaded and that scope is handled, and make it possible to make your app look a lot more like a standard Node.js app without losing any of the functionality that Meteor has today. Mm-hmm. Right? So you can take your app that runs on 1.2, run it exactly the same way on 1.3, and then if you want to incrementally move stuff into modules, if you want to, you can even use the automatic loading and the imports in the same files. So if you had your Meteor 1.2 app and all you want to do is make sure that two files load in a certain order, you can just import one from the other, and that just works. And you don't have to switch your whole app to imports. And basically, Ben's point is that would be completely impossible with Webpack, because Webpack is a very opinionated tool. Like Ben says, a lot of the benefits of Webpack are that it's opinionated and also highly configurable. And that's kind of not what we're trying to go for, something that does what you want out of the box, that you don't have to configure to do things that you want to do. And I actually I've had some very great experience with Meteor 1.3 so far. Like, you can just create an app with 1.3. You can just drop a file in there with your ECMAScript code, with your JSX for React, install an NPM package and import it, and then it just works. You didn't have to write any build files at all. There's no configuration of any kind. Yeah. And I think, like, obviously configuration being available is a good thing. But I think what we want to do is ship in 1.3 the minimum amount of features that will enable you to start having that more standard JavaScript module loading experience, and then the ability to do more fancy things that you might be used to from Webpack, like more configuration. Some of the hot module reloading stuff will come in a later release. 1.3 is about having the minimum thing that will let you use NPM modules seamlessly on the server on the client, and then use all these standard JavaScript tools that rely on modules.
See, guys, I don't know how I know how the community feels. At least I think so. But this might be a tough subject not to be opinionated on, because I'm kind of on Sashko's side on this. Like, I'm looking forward. I want to keep Meteor's finesse on how to build things, and the build tool is phenomenal. But I do feel some of the pain that the community is coming back at, which Webpack solved, but everyone hates configuring Webpack.
That's right.
I mean, it's just like, when I first learned it, I was like, I have better things to do on this Saturday, and this thing is taking up too much of my time, But the big thing is like, so module support, that is amazing. That is amazing. 1.3, I love it. I've been using it. I think not only do you get to, like, do exports and imports, another big thing is that developer community at large always was, like, complaining about the global scope issue and everything. And this is something where the community at large, or the JavaScript developers now, what you said, it's a more it's an environment that they're used to.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing to look at is, first of all, that this solves a lot of problems people have been having with Meteor in the past, like not being able to control their load order properly. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, you can now much more easily share code between your regular Node.js app that's built with whatever, or maybe not even built at all. Maybe it's just a plain Node.js app using plain V8. And then you can share code between that and your Meteor app, which until now was super hard. Mm-hmm. Now what you can do is you can just you can make an NPM package. You can share that between your Meteor code and your other code. You can just, like, symlink a file in, and it will work exactly the same way in both environments. And that's something that you couldn't really do until now. And I think it's not feasible to build every single part of your infrastructure with Meteor, right? Sometimes all you need is just, like, a simple node server that just, like, bounces some HTTP requests somewhere. Yep. And until now, you couldn't really share code that easily, but now you can do it.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. That is amazing. I think where people are coming back which they're pushing back, and they're like, hey, I want Webpack for. I think the two big reasons was, one, the first reason is what you said. Modules are huge, and for so many different reasons. And I think a pretty close second is speed. People want to speed up their development, and they want hot module reload. And Webpack offers that. And you're saying like yes to that. It's coming down the road.
So here's the deal, right? There's like a couple deals. So deal number one is this is still a beta. I think that's something people don't think about as much when they're posting their bug reports, which is fine, because
we're actually talking about it as if it's released. You're right.
I mean, I feel like people are already using it to run their production apps, which is great, because that's how we get the most feedback. Yeah. But if you remember that it's still something that is an active development and probably is at least like a month out from actual release, this is the time when you start focusing on performance, right? First, you get the thing to work. You validate that it's the thing that people need, in principle, like it has the right APIs, it can load the right stuff. And then the next thing we're going to do is optimize the performance. So you can be sure that the performance we have in the beta today is much worse than what we're going to release in the final release. And in fact, there's David Greenspan of much JavaScript fame, right? He basically wrote Blaze from scratch, right? He worked on some very important projects like Etherpad and all that kind of stuff. He's like a wizard. Oh, he wrote the version solver as well, which is like also magic.
Yes.
So he's working full time right now on making the tool faster.
Oh, nice.
So that's literally his only job, I think, until release, is he's going to be profiling the heck out of it, figuring out every corner which is slow, and trying to make it as fast as possible. Now, there are obviously some limitations, and I think this is the second deal that I'm talking about, is I think, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, back in the day, because inherently the way Meteor does loading with automatically loading stuff without modules doesn't let you do a lot of the optimizations that you can do when you have modules, right? So the only reason Webpack can do the things it does is because it can take advantage of analyzing which things you're requiring. It relies on you actually adding your own code and syntax to show it where to do code splitting. You have to configure that manually. So in Meteor, in today's Meteor code, it's not clear exactly which modules or which files depend on other files. And I think the module syntax in 1.3 is the first step towards enabling us to do those kinds of optimizations, right? Starting from code splitting and ending with hot module reload and like incremental rebuilds. The module support, that we want to release as soon as possible, is the thing that opens the door to having those features in something like Meteor 1.4.
Right. Yeah.
And there's like a second thing, which is, now that you have your opportunity to have your Meteor project be as close as possible to a regular JavaScript project, and if eventually more parts of Meteor are available on NPM, right? For example, if you can load a Meteor server as an NPM package, then it becomes much more feasible to take your exact Meteor code that you have written using imports and exports, and then switch out the build tool whenever you want to, and have it build the exact same app. Because right now there's a lot of like secret sauce in Meteor that is hard to reproduce using other build tools, which is also super valuable. But we want to make sure that, if you have a more standard structured app, it's much easier to switch tools when the current tools are not meeting your needs.
Yeah, 1.3 opens up a whole nother world of possibilities. So that is a new thing. Like, I didn't know about David Greenspan working on all this optimization.
Yeah, there's a GitHub issue about it if you want to follow along.
That's
that we can link to. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely link to it. Dude, that was pretty much it. The other thing is, and you kind of touched on it, was like entry points, and I could see this like huge for Meteor, especially since we try to tackle Cordova along with web apps.
Yeah. And there's also a bunch of stuff about that I talked to Ben, who's kind of leading this project before I came on here so I could say the right things. There's some stuff to touch on about that. Let's see. Yeah, let's go for the entry point thing because you mentioned it. So one thing that you can do with modules that you can't do without modules is have different entry points, right? So right now in Meteor, you have like the magical client and server directories, which tell you whether to load the file on the server or on the client. Sometimes you have things that aren't just the server on the client, right? You have like a mobile app, you have other stuff. And it's pretty easy to achieve that in a module-based world if you just have one file that imports everything it needs, right? You have like a mobile main.js, and that just imports only the stuff you need for your mobile app.
Right.
So that's just like the simplest use case for multiple entry points is you no longer have to have magical folders. You can just follow the imports from one starting point. So that's great. And that's something that we're actually going to have something like that for testing in Meteor 1.3. We'll have like separate entry points for writing your test code that won't get loaded when you're running your app in like regular mode and not test mode. And the next step after that is obviously having that for mobile and browser and server stuff. And then I think the step after that is the Webpack style totally custom entry points, right? Like your admin panel is one entry point and your like, client facing app is a different one. And then you load them whenever you want. And Ben definitely has a lot of ideas about how to do that. it may or may not use Webpack. It's hard to tell. It's still unclear exactly, how much Webpack brings to the table that would be hard to reproduce in a custom system.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like Meteor is opinionated when it comes to this part of it, and Webpack is like built for like every scenario, right? So much so that it's like a pain in the ass, really. So I think like your guys' hesitation and Ben's response to Webpack and like how you guys feel like, for Meteor, there's a different path that we can take that preserves the happy path for developers and also gives you all the power of what Webpack gives you.
Yeah, and I think I think one thing that Ben's really interested in is following more closely the JavaScript standards. So one thing that Ben in particular was talking about with Webpack is it relies very heavily on the require module.export syntax that you have in Node.js.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't let you specify module hot reloading and similar features using the ES 2015 import and export syntax.
Yeah.
And there's like some new standards or new things about hot module loading, like Ben specifically referenced the system API, like system.js, that are kind of more agnostic to how you're defining your modules. And I think we're interested in, having a Meteor app be an app that is a JavaScript application and not a Webpack application, right? Because when you're using Webpack, you're definitely writing a Webpack application. You're using some Webpack specific APIs to determine, inside your main code when code should load. And it would be much better if that was a JavaScript feature that could be backed by a standard so that when you switch tools, you don't lose those features.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us how hard it is to, I know you guys want to start bringing in third-party libraries, stuff that's like managed and accepted widely by the community. But like with this situation, you guys are showing your wisdom. Like you guys are like showing like, hey, we can't just like go willy-nilly and just like say, hey, oh, that's popular. Let's like bring that in. Like how difficult is that, like going back and forth and trying to figure out?
Well, one thing that's important to mention is like, it's not, it's not like bringing in external libraries solves everyone's problems.
Right.
Like there's a whole host of things that packages built specifically for Meteor on Atmosphere can do with Meteor that NPM packages can't do, right? So, some people I think have the opinion that we should just like delete the Meteor build tool and like just use Webpack or something. But there's a lot of things you can't have, right? One thing is you can't have code that acts differently whether it's on the client or the server. You can do that, I guess, with hacks with like Node.env or something like that. But Meteor has a first class concept of you want this code on the client, this other code on the server.
Mm-hmm.
Meteor packages have a much more first class way of importing and exporting both CSS and CSS preprocessor files. So actually, starting in Meteor 1.2, you can have a Meteor package that exports less code, which works seamlessly with the less build plugin in Meteor. So you can import your variables from a package, which as far as I know, there's not a defined standard for doing that in NPM today. There's another thing with compiler plugins, right? Like if you want to ship something that compiles some code, right now you have to target that towards, I guess you have to like export a function that's like a module loader, and then you have to like add that to your configuration file. And Meteor is the only system right now where you can have a build plugin that you just add, and then it compiles stuff. And then that's not even touching things about like Cordova plugins or mobile build, right? Like conveniently, a lot of these tools don't talk about mobile at all, right? Like React Native is great, but that first of all only works with React, and second, like NPM doesn't talk at all about how you're supposed to build your mobile app. Whereas Meteor, while there's still some improvements to be made that we're making 1.3 with the mobile build thing, I don't think there's any other tool that will let you build the same amount of things with as little configuration as Meteor gives you.
Absolutely. This is like actually a pretty simple subject for me. I don't know. I just, like I said to everyone, like I like the direction that Meteor's going with this. It's very thoughtful. I think it's the right call. I've experienced Webpack. I love it and hate it. I think the route that MDG is going is I'm just going to love it. There's not going to be any hate. So was there anything else that like Ben touched on when he was talking with you?
Yeah, well, I guess like, the thing that's really cool about Ben is, I think the thing that's cool about Meteor today as opposed to Meteor a year ago is we now have people who are really into this stuff that they're working on things long-term. Like back when we were trying to just fill in missing features, people were shifting around a lot, but Ben's in it for the long haul on this build stuff. He has tons of ideas. He, in university, he was learning about like programming language design. Like this is his thing. Like he knows everything about everything that I don't know about. And he's talking about, doing code splitting automatically by like analyzing your code paths and figuring out which ones are loaded where, right? He's talking about like adopting new standards for how module reloading. He's read all of Webpack and he knows how all of it works. And he's talking about rollup, which is this super, super flashy new tool that only works with ECMAScript modules. Doesn't work with require, but like eliminates dead code like nothing. And I think like he's the guy that I super trust to do the right thing and to like be at the cutting edge of this build tool stuff. And like I couldn't possibly be more excited about that. And like, same with the data team, like we're in it for the long haul, right? It's not like the data project is like a 3-month project for Meteor 1.4. Like we're going to be doing this for like a year plus, right? Or we're just going to be pushing this thing until we get it to work.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. So you guys are finally like, getting in the humming state of the startup where it's not like so much like chaos and like crazy iterating. Everyone's wearing so many hats, but now you guys are like settling down a little bit and it's time to really like make it performant, make it amazing. And that's like giving ownership to different people on the team.
Yeah. So that you can really focus and be in it for the long haul. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Hats off to you guys on that. Just out of the blue, just talking to you and we're 15 minutes in, so I got like some time to kill, right?
Sure.
So one thing that popped in my head was you guys keep track of apps that are made by Meteor, I think somehow, because you guys do have a unique ID for every app that's generated.
That's right. Yeah.
Backwards compatibility is really important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys able to see on your end, like the version usage?
Yeah. Yeah. We have a graph somewhere of which releases of Meteor people are running.
Okay. Cool.
It's actually like really good. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I think it's more like the iPhone version adoption graph than like the Android one.
Yes. That's what I was thinking in my head. Like what? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at the top of our priority list is making sure that, we're not always successful, obviously, like sorry to the people for whom this didn't work out, but at the top of our priority list is making sure that we don't have to put in tons of effort supporting old versions of Meteor by making it so that people can more easily upgrade to the new ones. Yeah. Right. It benefits everyone if we can be working hard on improving the newest Meteor versus like spending a lot of our time backporting stuff to like 1.1, 1.0. And we try our best to make sure that, maybe it's just a couple of tweaks to your app that will make it run in the next version seamlessly. Yeah.
And that's important. The more and more you guys open it up to the community to make PRs and transferring ownership and stuff like that. Like right now, there's so much technical debt and special knowledge that is only on your team.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's with backwards compatibility. So.
Yeah, and I think a really huge part of this is going to be, like I said, decoupling some of the stuff. So like one thing that's really unfortunate about Meteor today is, let's say you're using 1.2, and you really like the new Cordova stuff that Martin has been working on, which makes Cordova like way faster and more reliable. It would be great if you could just adopt that and not necessarily adopt anything else in Meteor 1.3, right? Because it's easy, the less stuff you change, the easier it is to make sure your app still works. And so it'd be great if, even if you're switching to new Meteor releases, you could switch incrementally. Be like, okay, I'm going to try a new mobile thing. Okay, that works great. Okay, I'm going to try the module thing. Okay, that works. Now I'm going to try the new like data thing. Okay, that works too. Instead of having to push a giant button to upgrade the release. Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. You guys are doing something different with 1.3, breaking out testing, modules, and Cordova. How has the response been with that so far? I think I don't have like a ton of context on that. I know that a lot of people have tried the module stuff.
Hmm.
It seems like if you look at the forum, it seems like Meteor 1.2 is like doesn't exist anymore. It's like everyone's posting about 1.3, and they're also all posting that as if it's been released, which kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I love it. So the moment that I started using the 1.3 modules, I was like, why would I want to go back to 1.2?
Yeah, exactly. And so I really hope that people give some of the other stuff a shot. I think once the testing is a little bit more crystallized, that'll be a huge thing to check out because that's something that's been, bothering people for a long time. And the Cordova stuff is also huge because now it like validates when it downloads new code. You don't end up with like your app being broken anymore. So yeah, I hope people get a chance to test out some of the other stuff, but the modules is really the big ticket item. So it's great that people are looking at that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, we did it, bro. We did it. We wrapped up show number 2.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I guess it's longer overall, but hopefully people can listen to the part that they like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Guys, keep on showing your support. You guys came out in numbers and we really appreciate it. It meant so much to us to like check out the numbers each day and saw how much it grew. It just fired us up to do this show. And thank you so much for that. We're stoked for the future. And definitely, again, a big thanks to MDG and Sashko for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thanks for having me and doing all this production. Really appreciate it.
Very cool. All right, guys. Well, until next time, go out there and make amazing stuff with Meteor.
Yeah.